And we are live. Welcome to episode 10 of the Razorburn podcast. I am once again joined by Heather. Hello, Heather.
Hi.
And I am Jack, if you guys don't know already. If you don't, you should probably watch the rest of the episodes because they're fantastic. We are also joined by Michael. Unfortunately, we had to scrape the bottom of the barrel once again.
I'm so sorry, but what can you do? Number two is actually number one, the best.
I love that.
Okay,
It's like the best.
so if you haven't watched the episode with Michael, we did do icebreakers, but we are going to do icebreakers again because we
Yep.
like them.
Yep.
Mhm.
So take them away.
Yes. So, yes, although all of us are very much aware who you are, Michael, I have fun with these and I like to see people's answers. So, I did pick some new ones, I think, for you.
Okay.
Normally I ask about ice cream, but instead, my first question is going to be, would you rather have cherry pie or chocolate cake?
Is this a main course, Heather, or is it dessert?
It can be breakfast. I don't care.
Because apparently in every one of these questions, you have to ask like a probing question about the actual nature of the question. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go for cherry pie.
Ooh, that's a good one. A good cherry pie is hard to beat.
Yeah, beautiful.
A good cherry pie.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is so funny that we were just talking about this. Would you rather never be able to read again or never be able to write?
Here we go.
I was just telling you. I think this can't be a real thing. I would say I would give up the ability to write, but if you chose write over read, you can't write really if you can't read. Otherwise, you're just like drawing a shape, and that's not really writing. So I think this question actually is kind of not answerable because those two things are so interconnected that really they're kind of two sides of the same coin. But if I had to choose, like if you said you have to lose your hands and you can't write with your feet, I would choose read.
You would choose read. Yeah, you're way
Yeah,
overthinking
100%.
that. So
Yeah.
let's go with read. Okay. Would you, okay, no. If, this is also so funny. If you could travel in time and meet any one person and language wasn't a factor, who would it be?
I'm not going to go for the obvious choices. I think what I'd want to do is go back as far in history as I could and probably meet whoever is that first person who is discovering something like the wheel or
Oh.
something about cooking or clothing or shelter. And just to be there at the beginning when that spark first hits and kind of get a feel for like how that person figured out a thing like that is so not a normal thing. That's my
Interesting.
choice.
That's very good. It wouldn't be the wife of that person?
They didn't have marriages back then, Heather. A social construct that really is just a modern thing that this is.
That's so funny. Okay. Would you rather be stuck on a plane between two arguing passengers or next to a screaming infant?
Screaming infant.
I
Screaming
know.
baby is easy for me. Actually, it really is easy for me because a screaming baby, I can tune it out. I think I'd probably also try to intervene and try to help calm that baby down. Arguing passengers, I would just be fuming. The screaming baby, I can deal with that. Okay.
Yeah. I had a screaming baby on. I was the mother of the screaming baby once on an
Oh man.
airplane, and it was
Yeah.
terrible. Yeah, he
Yeah.
evidently
You.
had an
Yeah.
ear infection starting, and like as soon as we started going up, he instantly started screaming and didn't stop
Yeah.
until we landed. It was
Yeah.
terrible. I felt sorry for the people sitting next to me. It was so
I.
bad.
But everyone's been that baby, and guess what? You just have to have some sympathy and empathy for the person that's trying to travel with a small child. You're not really in control of that child, and I can't imagine being angry because a baby cries. I think, come on.
Yeah, it's not really anger though. I think it's just frustrating. And as a parent, of course, obviously you're frustrated and embarrassed and everything else,
Right.
but
But
it's a
it's
hard situation.
yeah, it's the other people that I think you just need to take a deep breath. It's just a crying baby.
Yeah, chill out.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you rather win the Nobel Peace Prize or $5 million?
How much is the Peace Prize? Because you
Mm.
get money for the Peace Prize.
You
Well, you
do.
also get endorsements later, and like I feel like
Yeah,
it's a
the Nobel
building,
Peace Prize
like,
comes with
you
money.
know.
Um, I think the Nobel Prizes are tainted in some way by the historical figure that used to fund them, if you want to get all politically correct and crazy. Um, no, I would not want the Nobel Peace Prize.
Really?
I
Want
just
money,
can't.
man.
No, because if I took the money, then I could donate that anonymously and be able to do some good with that money without having all the baggage that would come with having won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, that's true.
100% my choice. Anonymous 5 million. Donate that right away.
Hmm. Nice. What kind of charity would you donate that to? Like a specific, not like it doesn't have to
Uh,
be a specific charity, but like a specific theme or.
Probably Warmongers International. I really like those guys. Um, there's also a group that wants to promote kilts for everybody around the world. Big fan of those guys. No, I think what I'd probably do is like a lot of the small local charities that do things like food banks or food
That's the
services
thing. I
or
would make sure that I donate it to a charity that 5 million makes a
a
difference.
real difference. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And there are a lot of small local charities around us and really everywhere in the world that can really benefit from those donations.
yeah. For me, food banks are always a win. It's definitely
Yeah.
a big spot for me. So, all right. Well, that's all I have.
Before we go into the topics, let me caveat this episode by saying everyone and their mother is using their internet at the moment, and I've already had to deal with some latency issues, so bear that in mind. But before, actually, it's funny because I've actually not received much bad feedback at all, but that is why there might be a bit of a delay on the video and audio sometimes. So hopefully, as the episode progresses, that you know goes to hell. But yeah. Okay, let's get into this. So our first topic today, which is something I'd say somewhat relative to you, Heather. I think when I think of people like representing their brands in this industry, I tend to think of you. Um, you are one of the most active on social media. You, I think you spend a lot of time on social media, like quite a lot of time, more so
A
than
lot.
most of the other artisans.
Yeah.
What we'd like to talk about really are the benefits or negatives of an artisan being the face of their company, but also putting lots of time into developing that aspect of their company because it can be quite difficult.
It absolutely can, and there are there's a list of pros and cons, and there are several factors on either side. So let's start with the pros, obviously, and then we'll work our way to the cons. So the pros are, if you're new, which I was, and I forced myself to just be active on my social media. You have to get your name out somehow, right? I mean.
Mhm.
Um, Social media is free. It just requires time. Of course, at this point now, I'm like, well, time is money. And so, like, but when you're new and you're trying to get your name out there, social media is definitely a big part of that for most of us. And when you're first starting out, you can't really afford to pay someone else to come work your social media for you. So, hello, here I am. um, it's really funny because when I first started, I had I think 75 followers when I first rebranded and launched. And nobody knew who the hell Zingari was. And I was doing, I was doing these business, mentoring type things. I was listening to them as I was working, and it was all about doing lives, doing this, doing that. And so I'm like, okay, so this is what I need to do. So I started doing lives and forcing myself to do them with no followers,
That sounds
which
hard.
Yeah, that's difficult, man. I mean,
Yeah,
sucks.
I
yeah.
presume a lot of it is trying to just talk constantly
Yeah,
because
well, I had no followers, so nobody was
yeah,
I was talking to myself on a live basically, and so there was nobody that was chiming in. There was no feedback. There was no conversation. I'm just like blah 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 blah.
that
It was
seems difficult.
terrible. It was
Yeah,
terrible,
just
and I wasn't good at it. No, I wasn't
pretending
good
that
at
a
it.
person joined. Oh, hi, John.
Yeah,
Thanks for you for joining.
you can't really pretend that though because people can see when other people join, so you can't
I'm
lie about it and be like,
yes.
"Oh, hey, hi," because everybody's gonna be like, who the hell are you talking to? There's
Talking to.
nobody there. Yeah. So it was very hard. And I just kept forcing myself thinking it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And it eventually did. But it wasn't until I got a little bit of a following that started doing like conversing back with me that it even became easier. And I mean, let's face it, my lives can still sometimes be a shit show and a disaster, but it is what it is. It's nothing compared to what it was. So it's definitely a learning process. But so getting your brand recognition out there and like working that is a huge part. And I wished I would had started it even before I launched. I think maybe that would have helped like build, like get active in the community and like build up towards that release of like rebranding. I think that would have helped. But um that's the biggest part of it when you first start out and you have no money, it's like free advertising, free engagement and things like that. I also know that from my feedback, I did a post on my stories actually, and people like artisans who are active. And I know that I get a lot of regulars on my lives, in my messages and things like that. And that helps build like communication and personal like relationships, I think, with like the customer. And some of them have become friends. And I'm sure you guys have experience with that on like from your side to like the artisan side, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've from my perspective, there are artisans I'm friendlier with, but then from my perspective, I've also been hired by a guy that actively doesn't want to do what you do.
Right.
So,
Be smart.
um, yeah, well, I mean, the difficulty is, I think, if, like, let's say if you hired a me to take over for the social media on Zingari, I think you would have a really difficult job because I think people would quickly realize that it wasn't you,
Yeah.
and it
Hmm.
wouldn't have the same weight each of the posts. And I think Chris, quite frankly, never had much of a social media presence anyway. He'd post
Right.
now and again, pretty sporadically. And the reason he hired me was to create at least some sort of presence.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but on the flip side, from the consumer perspective, I think I I prefer buying from artisans I know personally, and I found that I have, I guess, a better approach when it comes to supporting their business because I know the person who I'm supporting. I think that is separated for me when someone just makes good products and I'm using the products at face value. It There's two different scenarios for me. If I was to say, okay, I have very little money and I now have to decide what artisans I support, I mean, ultimately, I think it would come down to the artisans that I know personally. Yeah, that's the thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's in part because you're also depending on a person's authenticity. So like you as a person are creating a brand about you as a person, but also your products. Because
Mm-hmm.
many products exist without a face behind them.
Yeah,
And when we talk about the face behind the brand, in today's world, for a lot of these artisan products, it is the face in front of the brand. And just as you described, Jack, people are buying a product in part because they like the person who makes it. They want to support that person. It's kind of like you pick your favorite restaurant and you know the owner, you want to keep going back there.
Right.
It's a kind of a similar thing. There's an authenticity to the experience. You know the person. Maybe they share the same values. Maybe they don't. But there's kind of a some feeling of simpatico there that I like this person. I'm getting a sense that they like me. They appreciate my business. The difference between the restaurant and the sort of the artisan soap making thing, though, is that very often the person who is contacting you, Heather, people can see you. Like they can see your face, Jack. They have this impression that they know you. They've established a connection because they see you, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
see them. And so it is often kind of a one-way thing. And I think there's sometimes this dangerous slide too, where people expect because they think they know you and because you are the face of your brand, literally the real face of your brand, that there's this flip side too. There's this expectation that you will be a person to me and you'll treat me as an equal. We're in this
yeah,
relationship. And it it is in the end a consumer, it's a customer service relationship, right? You are
Yeah.
buying a product, in this case, from a person that you happen to like, and you know them because you can see them. I was thinking about this. We were talking about sort of topics about the podcast, and for somebody like Mantic 59, Mark Harrow, like his face is literally his brand because that's what his brand is all about, is his face and
Right.
that he shaves his hair off it. Like that That's kind of the real crux of it. So it it's one of the few places where I could honestly say, hey, by the way, your face is the brand, because
Hmm.
we've elected in those cases for an artisan to be the face of their brand. And I think it can be a really positive thing. And sometimes you see it flip in a way where it's just like, no.
Well, there's loads of
Yes.
circumstances in this industry where the opposite works as well. I mean, how many people know what Chris Cullen looks like? And he's been around forever, and loads of people.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but you know what I mean.
If
A
Yeah.
lot
you're
of
on
the
Oh yeah.
customer
Facebook,
base,
Right.
he doesn't do that. Like, and he's never done that. And Katie's
Yeah.
Bubbles is widely respected by most.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's where a company has grown organically to where the products are the face of the brand, and people
Hmm.
respect Katie's Bubbles as a brand, but not so much of Chris Cullen. I think what I would say, it's much easier as a business owner if you put your name out there and you put yourself out there to promote your product. I think you'll see growth quicker,
Hmm.
because not only are people using your product as reference, they're using you as reference.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
to inform a buying decision, that's actually much easier from you as the business to say, you know what, Heather's just released X. Heather's a great person. I'm going to support her. As opposed to, Zingari Man has just released this. I like their soap, but I'm not sure. Or I like their soap, so I'm going to support them. I think having that face really does supplement having good products.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder if that's what makes it truly artisan in a way, is that you associate the artist with the work, right? It's handmade by Heather.
yeah.
And I know
It,
Heather. I can see her in her lives. Like I established this kind of personal
yeah.
link to her, and I'm holding a thing that she made. Like I know that sounds silly,
Yeah.
but I know that for people,
Yeah.
and again, this is kind of a niche, but that really does matter to people. And people that
Hmm.
like you as a person and that create that connection are much more likely to continue to buy from you. They'll support your business. They maybe buy more product than they really need because they want that product, because that product is also partly you. And when it goes wrong, and that person who is the face of their brand executes a small misstep, that gets amplified by sort of the echo
Yeah.
chamber of the hobby, and that's sort of the,
Hmm.
the social space. And then because it is that person, they turn on that person, and then you've just lost that piece altogether. Coming back from that is often very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I also think it's hard from the business's perspective as well, because, like, let's say if you are that face of your business and people are yeah, I'm drinking bourbon, by the way. I've not mentioned it, but yeah.
Wow.
Um if you
Tequila.
are
White wine.
tequila, red wine, white wine?
Tequila. White wine, because red
Okay,
wine stains my teeth, and whenever we're like recording, like,
good
Yeah.
planning. But yeah, as I was saying, like, let's say if you are that business owner and you are putting yourself out there and you get bitten for some reason, I think it's just human to kind of feel, well, I thought these people liked me. Why are they shitting on me?
Hmm.
yeah.
Um, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we hit this a little bit. I think it was maybe with Will. As far as, was it with Will? As far as like artisan accountability in this hobby, I do feel like artisans have probably more accountability than in most hobbies,
Oh man.
because we put ourselves out there, right? Like we're
Hmm.
part of the community. And I love that. I love the support that I've got. I've received massive support in my year and a half in the community. And just like my tribe, I always say I have the best tribe, and I really do. I have like these amazing like supporters and customers. Some of them have become friends. Some of them have become regulars. Like they pop into my lives often. They message me, like you get a connection on both sides. It's definitely not just consumer to artisan. Like the artisan definitely develops a relationship with some of these people, but then the the problem becomes all of a sudden, like as that builds and builds, like you run out of time, right? We only have like time is literally money, and we only have so much time in a day. And as an artisan, we are our days are long and short at the same time. So whenever you are someone who is active, incredibly active, like I feel like I'm pretty active on my social media and I try to do that. Jack, as you mentioned, I am like the face of my social media. There's no way I could hand my social media over to someone else at this point and say, I need you to do 4 posts a day. I need you, I'll do a live once a week and I need you to do the rest of the work. People 100% would know immediately it's
Oh
not
yeah.
me, because at this point I've put my face and myself, my personality in with my brand, good or bad. This is what I've done and people would know. And so it's definitely a two-way street. I love the communication and the interaction with everybody, but then we have demands when we become this active that it's time. I mean, it's a lot of time. I spend the two the two biggest time things that I spend on my business is production and social media, not
Yeah.
paperwork, not computer work, not like my website, things like that. It's literally social media and production. It's a lot. It's a lot of time, and it can bite you in the ass,
The funny
frankly.
thing is though, from someone who carries your product, like we carry pretty much most of Zingari's products at Carve. I would say I think a lot of your social media presence is a big contributing factor to why they move so well. Um, you're constantly out there, and people
Yeah.
are constantly seeing you.
Yeah.
I'd also like to say something that how often have you watched a review of your video or a review of your product on video where someone is saying, I'm using this from Heather at Zingari, not Zingari Man. They're saying Heather at Zingari. Well, I think what you're seeing there is you're seeing an immediate connection between that user, you, and your brand. It carries way more weight. You see it with artisans that do it a lot, like Peter Charkalis is put himself out there as like the face of A&E. Um,
Hmm.
Right.
not so much Will, but quite a lot of people have done that, and I think it
Yeah.
really pays as an advantage for the most part, right?
it- I think if you are choosing that as your part of your brand, then yes, I think,
Yeah.
Chris Cullen's a great example. He
Yeah.
really hasn't done that, and he's really worked on the brand in and of itself. He's still pretty active. He will still respond to email. This has been in the early days. This was always a real question about too close a relationship between consumers and the vendor because it created this sort of inequity and this issue about there's always a commercial interest driving that vendor. So there was always this underlying question about, well, how sincere, how authentic is this person really
Yeah.
being? Because this person has really one primary driver, which is I need to sell my products. But I think you can also tell for artisans that really are authentic in their experiences and really authentic in their interactions with people, you get a feel for whether that's a real thing or not. Now,
Hmm.
everyone knows Heather has an interest in selling her products. That's why you're in business. It's not a charity. You're doing this because you want to make
Right.
some money, right? And you've
Yeah.
chosen this particular product because
Right.
there's a need and there's a market and you want to grow that. Part of that means you have to put yourself out there. And in this case, you are going to remain the face of your brand because you have chosen to be a person who is really you. It's not a fake commercial persona, right? And I think that is kind of the key. As long as people understand that for a lot of the people that interact with you, it really is limited to kind of a face on the screen or a name in an email. It's not an actual authentic personal relationship. It's a piece of it. And this is the kind of thing where, having had a lot of interaction with people based on like my YouTube channel, comments or emails or cries for help on Reddit, it's still just a person who they see you, they establish a connection with you, but it's not the same in reverse. It's true, Heather, that for some, but for the vast majority of your customers, you know, it's not going to be like that. It's kind of in an unequal relationship in that regard. They have much more access to you than you will ever have access to them,
Yeah.
right?
So yes, so that is definitely a big thing for me. Chris and several other artisans, for example, are fortunate, and Chris and Rod. Okay, so Rod is not active almost at all on social media, and people are very aware of Sterling. People are aware of well, A&E is not really a good example because Peter is fairly active on social
Yeah.
media. But so say Katie's Bubbles, Chris and Rod, right?
Noble Otter too.
So yeah, Noble Otter. Like people, well, Noble Otter even a little bit less so than those two. So let's just say we're going to look at Katie's Bubbles, Chris, and we're going to look at Rod. I think that they started before social media was expected,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
So they were active, like say on Facebook, and they were active in some of the groups and some of the smaller groups, and then they
Yeah.
built a name for themselves when the hobby was newer. And so it was I think I don't want to say easy because
So
it wasn't
here's
easy
the
for
thing,
them,
though.
but
I
it
would
was a
say,
different storm.
based on that, though, I would say if you're in a space with less products, it's almost definitely easier to get your product out there, right? I mean, I think if you think now, the space for the amount of artisans we have, it's absolutely amazing for the consumer. But trying to be new and then
I mean,
yeah, it's crazy. Trying to
making a
set yourself apart from one another. I honestly think the easiest way to do that is not separating the business, but separating you as the faces of the company and say, I am Zingari Man. My name is Heather. If you like me, there's a very big chance you're going to like my products as well. But now it's such a busy space that it must be very, very difficult to just make your product stand out because frankly, it doesn't.
Yeah, I see products on Instagram all the time, and there's a real distinct gap between ones where it's just the product, a label, a
Mm-hmm.
certain brand. I see the brand post quite a bit, and they're very active in terms of getting stuff on Instagram. I don't know who it is. And in today's market, the fact that there are brands where I do know who the person is actually is a real
Yeah.
positive, except for the people that I don't like, and then it's a real negative, but that's too bad for them. That's not you, Heather. Right, but there are brands that are kind of faceless, and so they don't actually have that extra piece that kind of drives that consumer connection to the product, right? And I think for people that have really done this right and they have been able to retain, and I keep using the word authentic, but I think that's really what it comes down to, a sense of real authenticity that you like the product, you like the philosophy, you like where the company is going, you think the pricing model is right, you like the way the releases are handled, you like the way the customer support issues are dealt with, because it's a person, it's only one person doing it right or doing it wrong. And I think this is the other thing people have to remember is that when you're the actual face of your company, you're everything. Anything that goes right or goes wrong, it's all you. And people can see it in your face. Like they can see when you're available, like, hey, it's just me. And we were watching the last podcast with Scott. You can see that there's a part of that which for him is it's that's not worth it. Like he's going to let the brand stand as it is, right? And
Mm-hmm.
do the best he
Yeah.
can, deliver the best products that he can, and that's what he's chosen to do. And he's going to stand on that, and power to him. Other brands are going to be invisible. They will not have a face associated with them. And personally, I think that in this particular market, which is very crowded, those people are going to slide to the back a little bit. They're not going to have that extra sing to the product line. That one's for free, Heather. You get that one for free.
So
Um,
what I would say about that is I'm not sure if it's different in the hardware space, but Chris has never been a face of Carve. Like he's never really put himself out there much. I
mhm.
think Carve came in like late 2017, which is not early on in the kind of like artisanal shaving space at all. I think what he did is he let his product do the talking for a long time.
Yeah.
And having competitive pricing really made people pick up that brass razor. And once you start hearing things on the grapevine saying, oh, this razor is fantastic, people are going to pick it up. It's just how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But from the other side, and kind of bouncing off of what you just said, Michael, any criticism we get, I see it all. Chris, on the
Mhm.
other hand, doesn't actually see that much of it. So when I speak to Chris, he's
Wow, I'm jealous.
he's like, how's everything going? I'm like, man, this is a shit show. And he's like, really? I've just been polishing all day. Yes. And he's like, oh, okay, we'll talk about it. But
Yeah.
to make him produce and do his production aspect better, I'm basically the one that puts out the fires.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
what he has hired me to do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of insane. It's the complete different contrast.
But you have
Yeah.
a unique opportunity there, in my opinion, to be the face of that shit show, but be the person who perseveres through it, who does right by customers, who owns up to either mistakes or missteps in terms of running the business or advertising or sales or whatever else it might
Mhm.
be, you can continue to be the face of that, and that's a person who can kind of move through a transition. You would still remain the face of that company, the public face of that company,
My
but
issue
you're
though with that is I am not the one making the product that everyone loves from Carve. I am the one that is selling the product and talking to you over email. I
right.
struggle to put myself out there as the face because Chris is the one that deserves the credit for this, not me.
But you're not the face taking the credit. See, to my mind, there's a way to be the face of the company where you are acting as the advocate for customers and as the advocate for the company
Yeah,
in a public way, and to allow people to build again an authentic, sincere relationship with you as a company. They're investing hard-earned money with you. They expect certain things from you, and a person has to stand up and be honest about the way that that business works and
yeah.
help people get right and do right. And to my mind, that there's a risk of being that face. And Heather, you're in the same boat. Like if anything goes wrong and a release goes sour, you bring out a soap that burns people's faces to shreds. You're going to have to get out there. Not that that's going to happen, but let's pretend that it did. I,
Oh,
I
yeah.
imagine the first thing you would do is you would get on Instagram and say, guys, I'm going to look you in the eye right now and tell you I am sorry about what happened. This is a mistake on my part. Like, because you have an option to leverage your face as your brand in those circumstances to
Yeah.
make it even better. So, I mean, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but to me, that seems like that's the kind of thing you'd really want to build on, where it does work.
Well, I think what you're coming
Yeah.
from there is you're coming from saying because people respect Heather, if Heather is the one to openly admit that she fucked up in this hypothetical circumstance,
Yeah,
people would people would respect that level of admittance more than some bigwig CEO saying, "Sorry guys, we're gonna have to take in 1 million and we'll send out you 1 million in a week." You know what I mean?
yeah,
It carries a
yeah,
bit more weight. I can see what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are people have spokespersons. A
Yeah.
Yeah.
spokesperson is a person speaking on behalf of, but not as an authentic person who really stands in front of the brand. You have an option there to still be the brand of Carve as the face of it. It doesn't matter that Chris is
Mhm.
in the back polishing his knob. I'm polishing knob, whatever he's polishing back there. I don't know.
I bet he wish
Whatever
he was
polishing
at
he's
the
doing.
moment, man.
Yeah, whatever. He's polishing something, I hope, because people really want those razors.
Yeah.
But again, and I think this is one of the benefits of the way that this market has grown is that you have an opportunity. And Heather, you made a really good point there about the kind of the growth of social media. You have a unique opportunity to be the face of your brand, and when that goes right, I think it's a hugely powerful thing.
Yeah.
My concern is always on the flip side, is where people assume this sort of equality of relationship between you because they can see you and they have a connection built, but it can never really be the same.
It's funny actually. I have a question for you, Heather. How many people have you built like somewhat friendly relationships with that have asked for free product? Does it happen regularly?
Actually, no, actually it doesn't. And I think it's partially because from early on, I made a very firm stance of I don't hand out free product for review. And it's not because I'm cheap and I don't want to send out product or I
Mm.
don't want to pay for shipping. That has zero to do with it
I
because
mean,
obviously
as an
the
artisan,
return,
that pays for itself.
yeah, the return on that is a way outweighs any of the payment or the fee and the product that I'm sending out. That has nothing to do with it. But early on, I said I want people to believe every review of my product they see, every review of my product they hear. I don't want them to question anything and say, well, but, maybe they're friends, maybe they got the product for free, maybe they're like enhancing the review because of this, that, or the other. I just very early on made this decision to say, no, I want every review I want people to read any review they see of mine and say, I can trust that 100% because I know it wasn't a freebie. It wasn't this, it wasn't that. And as YouTube reviewers, Michael and everybody else out there, I am not saying that you're under pressure. It was just a personal thing for me because as a woman, like say I've done like a lot of like makeup reviewers and things like this, and I've always questioned, well, they got like 10 of those 15 products for free that they're trying. Like obviously, you know what I mean? Like they can use them in the best light or they can highlight they highlight the positives, but they never mention any of the negatives. And let's be real, every friggin' product made has a negative of something. And I just didn't want that. And it is, so I really don't get it very often. I really, at this point, I think people know it's just not going to happen. Like, I'm willing to work with you. I will give, a lot of reviewers early access and we'll send them out early to them if they want. I'm happy to do that, but I just don't do free product in exchange for a review. I just don't do it.
So when you talk about that, kind of from my perspective, someone that does do shaving videos, using products, I've only actually recently realized quite how much weight some of the stuff I says has. I've been contacted by a few artisans that have used me as a reason why they're selling product. That isn't my intention at all, really. I kind of go out of my way for if someone is selling something, if I have early access to that, I almost insist that I pay. I don't really want that for free because the way I see it is maybe that isn't your sole livelihood, but if you're giving me this for free, I feel I'm taking your money out of your pockets. I
Yeah.
have enough money to pay. Like, it's really not a problem. I've had artisans refuse and not let me pay, but across the board, for the most part, they let me pay for product. The only privilege I get a lot of the time is to get it early,
Mm-hmm.
but I much, much prefer supporting the artisans, especially if I have those personal relationships with them, because my conscience then is damaged in some way, if you understand what I'm saying.
And I don't honestly know, and I can say hand on heart, I have no clue what impact my reviews ever had on sales. I would just assume that it's more a matter of just interest, and if a person was going to buy it anyway, it's just an added data point.
No.
I would I've asked people like, do you think this? I have no clue. My assumption is that people are watching a bunch of videos and they kind of know
Okay.
whether they want the thing, yes or no.
I'll tell you
That's
what
my
impact your
that's my
videos had.
assumption.
I'll tell you. So do you know when you announced the aluminum razor as your razor of the year? I
Hmm.
had 23 emails in the inbox related to that.
Well, my mom is just a really quick typist. I don't
Amazing.
know what to tell
That's
you.
impressive.
Not Michael's mom. I want one of these.
It makes a difference. Trust me, it makes a difference. And that is why artisans will send stuff out for free most of the time. Like, we all know the artisans that do it. I'm not going to point fingers, but it exists, and that's why they do it. It's because
Yeah.
it gets their product out there. It gets someone with a bit of notoriety, or the term I dislike, which is influencers, to be able to say something. It's mainly loads of people have connected with Michael. They then see Michael say something, potentially praising the product, and then at that point, even if that's not going to directly impact someone's buying decision, it's almost definitely going to contribute to it.
Yeah, yeah, looking back on it, I mean, sort of to Heather's point about the, sort of the integrity of it, it's really important that people understand that you're using that product. Like, Heather, your reticence about trusting people because they got product for free, that's been a thing forever in those reviews. Like,
Yeah,
you always have to assume, like, and I think I really tried to stress it again, as did many others. I got this for free, but if you've watched any of my reviews, you know that
that doesn't mean anything.
that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
And if you
Yeah.
can't trust the review, there's no point in doing those videos, or
yeah.
you end up being, honest to God, just a shill because a person sends you something. Whatever you send me, man, you're going to get a fantastic. Like, it's not like that. I mean, I would always tell people it's a live by the sword, die by the sword thing. If your
Mhm.
product is good, it stands on its own, that's what you're going to get.
Well,
If it's crappy, that's what's going to happen.
I know some video reviewers that have said negative things about products, and it has damaged the company like big time. And that's what happens when you send people that are honest certain things, right? It's the case of if there's something wrong with your product, they're gonna say something. They're not gonna just sweep it under the rug. And I
Yeah.
think with you, Michael, someone who has so many of those videos and like a kind of like a clear catalog of stuff you've done before, I don't think people would question your integrity. I think the big time is when someone is very rarely honest or very rarely says anything negative about a product. Like if someone's using Williams mug soap and it's like, oh, this is amazing. No, it's awful. What are you
It's
doing?
awful. Yeah. No one believes that. Right.
The thing, but they will, because they create
They got
this.
the $3 puck for free.
They create this aura of positivity, right? They don't want to be negative about anything. And if they are, that's not the sort of thing they're trying to achieve. So they just won't say anything. They won't say anything negative. I've spoken to video reviewers that have said if I have something negative to say, I won't even post the video.
Right.
Yeah, that's silly.
I think that's fucking mental. Excuse my language,
it's terrible.
but as a reviewer or someone who's giving the impressions on something, it's your responsibility to give your true opinion on something. I don't know. That irks me quite a lot, because
now
integrity.
I do have a retraction to make from my previous appearance on this fantastic podcast. I said in episode 2, the best episode so far, although this will clearly be way better. I did say that Williams Mug Soap was a terrible soap, and I have to retract that now, because I'm here to tell you
it's a terrible soap.
No, that soap is amazing soap, and it is transformed from a crappy soap into an amazing soap only when bloomed in a Freedberg blooming bowl, available now at freedbergblooming.com. Anyway, that's... Anyway.
I remember you talking about the Freedberg blooming bowl.
Now on sale.
Now on sale.
Oh, there's a discount. There's a discount. COVID-19, take off 19%.
That's a good one. I'm going to have to use that at some point. So it's definitely, but it's the same thing. Like, you guys want to, like, a reviewer who has integrity, right? It's the same thing as an artisan who has integrity and putting themselves out there. So that's definitely very comparable. I mean, and when I say that I don't send free product to reviewers because I don't want people to question it, it's not because I don't I don't believe in the reviewers or I question their integrity. I just don't want people to question the reviews, if that makes sense. It's not really, like, I don't really feel like it's the same thing. It's not because I'm questioning the reviewer's integrity. I don't want my reviews to be, like, questioned for their integrity overall. And I feel like at this point, a year and a half into it, people know that I don't do that. And so if somebody is doing a review on my product, they know it, they've paid for the product, unless it's a sample, a tester, things like that. But otherwise, I mean, I just don't send free products. So
the question is, let's say if you suddenly decided to start doing that, do you think people's reviews would carry less weight, although there are loads of reviews before of people praising what you do? Because for me, you've built that kind of arsenal of good products. People are fully aware that they're good products, but do you think now, because you're giving stuff out for free, people wouldn't trust those reviews?
I think they would question my integrity at that point.
Could be, because you've had that hard stance for so long, and then you've eventually
and that comes back to being, like, an artisan that is putting themselves out there in the community, right? So, like, people know I have this stance, as far as my reviews goes. And I think that if I start changing that, people will look at that more personally than maybe an artisan who's not. Like, most artisans don't take this stance, though. Let's be honest. So I have this hard stance, and I have that on several things. But when it comes to reviews, I have this black and white definition for me personally. That doesn't mean reviewers suck. It doesn't mean reviewers are biased. Like, it's some some are, but I mean, overall, I feel like the majority are fair and honest, but it's just my comfort level. It's just where I stand. And it's based on other things outside the wet shaving, like makeup and things like that. Makeup reviews, please. Come on. Those people. Anyway, so yes, but going back to, like, the artisans, like Katie's Bubbles and, like, Rod, and Sterling, like, they don't have to put themselves out there, because they started in a time when social media wasn't as active. and they made a name for themselves, like say on Facebook before Instagram, and or they were on Reddit before Instagram or
I
other
think
like newer
Shaving
things.
forums.
the
Yep.
Yeah, the
im- I
forums and
think the
stuff.
impressive thing is that those artisans have been around for so long. So many have come and gone, but they're still incredibly relevant.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think that's the
Yeah,
more impressive thing.
yeah, they
Well,
built
and
a name based on because at the time it was different when they came out
yeah,
5, 6, 7 years ago, right? Like it was a different feel, a different atmosphere, and they produced their own name in a different way that was more relevant at that time, and they've worked their way off of that. And at this point, they don't need to do Instagram or Reddit or like Facebook or, the shaving den or whatever the forums may be,
yeah.
because they have this solid foundation and they should. They've been in business for a long time at this point, and that's what you want as an artisan is that solid foundation to work off of. But for newer people coming in, we have to work it.
I think it's so important,
Right.
honestly. I think that's really the only thing that's going to set your product apart from everyone else. It's the ability to put a face to that brand. Because like how many new brands have come and gone where you don't know the owners, you don't know anything they're doing. They might make good soap, but frankly, it sounds insane. Good soap isn't really going to sell good soap anymore. There has to be an experience
Something.
around it, and a big part of the experience is getting to know the person who's making it.
Yeah. I will
Yeah.
say, Rod and Mandy, though, you have to think about the fact that Mantic 59 posted a congratulatory picture of their baby, who's another gorgeous baby, right?
Another.
And, well, but that's the thing. Like, there is actually a face to them. Like, there's
Yeah.
real people. They're people that have a family. They live in a certain place. They're open about the way that they live and their personal values. So, in fact, there is a face to that brand, right? You know them as people. It's not the Sterlings, quote unquote.
Right.
It's Rod and Mandy. Like we know their names, and that's a big thing. Like whoever runs GOF Trumper, I have no clue who that is.
No.
That's some faceless corporate guy, and those guys have been in business forever.
Yeah.
And they sell oodles and oodles of soap.
And
Yeah.
But they're
I think you're right. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And I think with that, mentioning GOF Trumper is the perfect time to move on to our next topic. Um, we are joined by
soaps
a guy that has used a hell of a lot of soap. Um,
6 or
and
7.
wow, that's so many. Mind you, if you
So
told me
many.
that you use 6 or 7 in their entirety, I'd actually be quite impressed.
I can honestly say that's probably true.
You
Yeah,
think?
yeah,
What have you used
absolutely.
in its
Because
entirety?
a tub of Fraurasso,
Okay,
multiple tubs of Queen Charlotte's,
okay.
Spike shaving stick, palm olive shaving stick, Latoya, or La Toja, depending how you want to say it. I think that second one is wrong. Um, a number of them because I used to start and finish a soap. In the old days, that was the mark of a man. You would start a soap and you would finish a soap, and then you'd move on to the next one. Like that's completely gone, obviously,
Oh, it
but
doesn't exist.
I doesn't exist now. It's crazy talk.
Okay, so what we're going to discuss is we're going to discuss. I'll caveat this by saying more recently I've been planning for a series on my own YouTube channel. I got into this when the artisan thing was booming, like really booming. There's loads of artisans. I got kind of invested in the artisanal side of the kind of community really quickly, and frankly, I hadn't tried quite a lot of the classic stuff. So my reference now using all of this classic stuff is all of the artisan stuff I've used loads and loads of, and it's kind of difficult, I have to say. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the differences between the readily available mass-produced classics and the more
Yeah.
modern artisan soaps. What's your take on that, Michael?
Oh, you can barely tell them apart, honestly. It's just a matter of packaging. Everyone knows that. Okay, there is really a massive difference, and I will say from the outset that there are very cheap soaps, commercial grade soaps that are produced in vast quantities that are excellent performers,
Yeah.
and they perform up to a level for what that soap can offer given what it's made out of, right? And the way that it's produced, the way that it's packaged is going to keep it below a certain bar. But on the face of it, see what I did there? That was pro right there. That was pro level. On the face of it, those soaps still do exactly what they're supposed to do. They produce a great shaving lather. They're easy to use. They're readily available. They're cheap, and you get a great shave out of them. they don't offer any of the benefits of an artisan soap, and we'll talk about those benefits in a minute. But as a commercial product, they're supremely focused on doing one thing and one thing well at a great price point. And I think people that don't use those are kind of cheating themselves out of a sense of what a shaving soap could be. Because remember, it's billions of people shaving. Artisan soap is like the tip of the tip of the tip
And
of the pyramid. Like it's a
yeah,
tiny piece of it.
and that's the thing. Like something when I've been prepping for this series, and the, excuse me, and the reason why I'm doing this series to begin with, I have quite a lot of European viewers, and those European
Hmm.
viewers have said, "I don't have this available. I don't have that available. Can I see you use Parasso? Can you use Cella?
Yeah.
Can you use this? Because this is what's available to me."
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
what I can relate to in terms of the product you're using. And I think for me, the biggest selling point of the mass produced stuff is it's available. That is the biggest selling
Yeah.
point for me.
I can get it. Like if I live in Argentina, what's available to me? Like it's great that Heather produces these fantastic soaps, but it's literally I can't
Yeah.
get them. Like it's priced out of my market. I can't really ship it to me. But if you think about what the commercial or mass-produced options are available to a lot of people, there are some really good, solid pieces. I mean, there's a lot of options in Europe. Obviously, I don't know about South America. That really depends on a lot of the kind of the tubed creams. I think is mostly what you'd
Yeah.
likely see. Maybe some shaving sticks, but there are some really good, solid products that have a very long life for a good reason because they are cheap, they provide great value, and they just get the job done. And I think the last time I was on, we talked a bit about sort of the utility aspect of shaving. And I think those kind of products, Jack, that's really the thing you need to be looking at is what's the value of this product? Like a stick of Argo comes wrapped in paper, so it's clearly not, banking on its fantastic packaging to make a sales impression, right? But all it has to do is just make a great shaving lather, and it's
Yeah.
easy to use, and it's cheap as chips. Like you just get it anywhere, and it's just works great. I think people who have only used artisan products sometimes might be shocked at how good those low grade or kind of consumer level commercial products can be.
Yeah.
Actually, they do perform quite well. They're not going to have all the post-shave qualities and the fantastic scents and the skin-friendly
So
ingredients. And
talking about that, kind of let's go on to the differences of them then. So the biggest thing I've noticed more than anything, and I would say not in just the mass produced soaps, but I'd say even in the artisan soaps of old, the different type of lather compared to what is produced now.
Mhm.
I'd say the fashionable lather now is that very low, dense, kind of creamy lather. When I use Cella, I uploaded a video of Cella today.
Yeah,
That stuff is like a beard, like it's massive.
yeah, that's
And that is, but then what people think is good is, in my opinion, makes it quite airy. It's quite airy in comparison to what you'd get
yeah,
nowadays. But does that
Mhm.
mean it's bad? No. For me, it means it's different.
yeah,
There were different metrics, and Cella will always be different to something Will or Peter or Heather makes because Cella has been
right.
around since 1899, right?
Yeah.
It's so interesting. There's so many differences because when I was using it, it's weird because I've been spoiled by a lot of the artisan stuff.
Yeah,
I'm not going in there expecting it's going to be shit. Like I know it's not going to
no,
be
and
shit. It's
it
been
really
around for so
isn't.
long,
Yeah,
but it's it's not doing things that I get from these modern
Yeah.
soaps, and the things that these modern soaps have are incredibly luxury. And
yeah,
I'm not trying to condescend or demean anyone that only has access to these things because I'll tell you something. At the end of the day, I found Cella gave me an incredible shave. I had absolutely no complaints at the end of all of it.
yeah. I know.
But I think those artisanal products give you access to a different type of experience, and I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest difference for me.
Well, absolutely. Artisan products are designed to hit a number of different notes. They need to feel like lu- luxury that's within grasp. Like it's a
Yeah.
luxury item that's not that expensive. It has these fantastic ingredients. It can be organic. The scents are perfume grade scents, right, or cologne style scents. They have a very wide range. Cello only comes in really one scent. I know there's some new ones, but normally speaking, Cello is just it's the one scent. There's packaging, there's associated aftershaves, like Heather's got balms. People have a range of products that all kind of go together, and they're really focused on hitting these very high quality notes. And they're also constantly working to one up each other. Chella is not looking to compete. with anybody because Cella already has a perfectly established, completely well understood,
Yeah.
brain dead simple formula. And it may seem airy because you may be trying to use it like a very heavy, super fatted, very creamy, dense, ingredient rich soap. It isn't that. It produces an amazing slick lather. Like
And
it's
that's what I would
great.
say, actually.
Yeah.
I would say one of the things all of these soaps have in common is they're all very slick. Like
Mhm.
dragging the razor across my face, I was like, wow, this is pretty damn slick.
Yeah. And
And at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's supposed to do. So it's
yeah.
a good product, right? I mean, but when you're using an artisan based product, like if I'm using one of Heather's soaps, I'm like, this is so dense. This can take so much water.
Yeah.
This is this is the epitome of luxury. But what I'm trying to get at is if all you have available is Cella, you're a lucky person.
You're
Because
not
Cella's
missing
pretty damn
out.
good.
Absolutely, you're not missing out. Now, if you're the kind of guy who will take a bare towel of soap and lather for 30, 40, 50
Oh,
minutes,
here we go.
I don't know who that, just let's pretend that happened. That could
Chris
be
Madden.
Chris Madden or
30
Jack.
minutes?
It was, no, I
He
exaggerate. It was only
no
50 or
he.
60. It was,
So this is what happened, right? I've been testing with distilled water, and I was saying, oh, this lather is so much faster, and because I lather more than the average person, he's dissing me
more
because
than the average person by a factor
yeah
of like 100.
Right.
I don't know
Yeah.
about that.
No, it wasn't true.
Maybe.
But the irony is that that stuff feels really good to lather and you kind of play with it. You can add water
It's
to it.
so
It like
fun.
builds this amazing lather. But the fact is that if you just want to shave and you're using
It's not
Cella,
necessary.
yeah, you don't need any of that. It's a great thing to have, but it's not a necessity. The beautiful thing about things like Cella, I'm not a big fan of Peraza. I'll just get that out there. I don't think actually those are good soaps. But things like the Hard Puck of Alubra or the Spike Stick or the Palm Olive Stick, right? they they're so functional, and I have to give them huge props for that. And I did always try, and I'm glad you're gonna undertake this, Jack. I think it's always good to try those products. It creates a really good balance of understanding what that thing is supposed to do, which is why I always used to make the crack about soap has one thing to do, and when you use one of those commercial grade soaps, you realize, wow, actually this thing really does just lather. Like you take
Yeah.
Tabak, I think that thing stinks. And my stick is 4 years old, it still stinks. I cannot in any way diss it on its performance. That thing makes it amazing lather, just shaves great. You know?
And at the end of the day, those people aren't creating those products for us, are they?
No.
They're creating the
No.
products for um,
Yeah.
X guy who wants to learn how to shave with a shaving cream, so he picks up a tub of Taylor of Bond Street.
Yeah.
Um, and again, all of those products have one thing in common, and they lather, apart from Williams mug soap, and they work.
Yeah. Which does lather, I guess. I think I did make a note about this in one of the previous podcasts. There was actually a discussion about, I think it was Sean, about the cologne scents and kind of the niche and the masses and sort of that drive towards a more complex scent profile, right? And trying to continue to grow and build a kind of a perfume style or cologne style. But that's kind of the pyramid there. And I thought, actually, you know what, guys, you shouldn't kid yourselves. That is a niche. Simple scents do also sell. And they sell
Mhm.
quite well. Like Taylor Watson, like the grapefruit is an amazing scent.
Sandalwood, man. That
They,
sandalwood scent
it's
is so
is
popular.
so popular. It's a simple note. It's a simple note compared to like any of the kind of the high-end artisan scent profiles, which are really designed for a particular kind of market. And I think people tend to kid themselves like I have to one up the other guy with an amazing scent. Even a simple, strong, clean citrus scent, a sweet note of tangerine with a bite of lemon or something like that, people will buy that. And we know that from if you look at people's profiles, actually those simple scents do really sell, even in a high-end base. You don't have to only ever compete on outdoing the next person in terms of your amazing scent profile. Sometimes a simple, clean food-related scent or something like sandalwood, kind of a woodsy cedar, a simple bay rum, like those things continue to sell well because they are just
Mhm.
well understood, emotionally powerful, very satisfying scents. And by the way, it now comes in this amazing base,
Yeah.
right? For a lot of people, those kind of perfumey cologne scents, they're just too much and they can't pick out the notes. Like if there's 15 notes in there and you just don't pick it up and what you smell is wood, like, well, okay, what am I buying this thing for? Like if I could just get a straight simple sandalwood or oud or a cedar wood or something like that,
Yeah.
I'd
Have
be
you ever
okay with
used
that.
Castle Forbes?
I've used the lime, and the lime is a
That is an excellent scent.
excellent scent. Beautiful, crisp lime scent, right? And
Yeah,
that's a, like a one touch, like a mwah, just perfect spot on kind of thing.
exactly. Like it's the sort of thing where you open the tub and I know exactly what this is. I don't need to
Hmm.
play any guesswork. This is so lime,
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
and that is my favorite lime scent, by the way.
Yeah.
It's so pure and clean. Another big thing, and I think something Heather will be able to touch on really well, is the shelf life. There's a considerable difference in shelf life between classic soaps and more modern artisan soaps. Why do you think that is, Heather?
Yeah, so a lot of mass produced items are kind of this way. So whenever, and it doesn't matter if it's shave soaps or bath soaps, it's kind of the same thing. Part of that is going to be one of the things that I'm going to assume, and I'm going to admit, like, I haven't used a lot of the classic soaps. So, but one of the things that they're less known for is that amazing post shave feel, right? That
Yeah.
Hmm.
the artisan soaps have.
Yeah.
Part of that is because as a mass produced commercial product, they are looking at stability and shelf life and things that like it may sit somewhere, it has to sit in their warehouse and then ship somewhere, and it may sit in a store for 3 months, 6 months, and then it lasts for another 6 months or a year or whatever it may be. Um, so they need to have this stability and shelf life to them that artisan products have, but maybe not quite as long. And part of that is because of the ingredients in the super fat. Those of you who have listened to the podcast before, you've heard me talk about super fat. So that's when you have these extra free like oils in the soap that aren't needed to actually make the soap product. They're the extra like fats. And that's part of
They
what
make a big difference
they
too.
make a big difference. And that's
Hmm.
part of what gives you that amazing, like luxurious post shave feel and things like that, right? So the problem with that, the downside to that is, especially depending on the ingredient that you are looking at being in that super fat, is that does take away from the shelf life. And if you've had some artisan products, depending on their formula, they're maybe like 2 or 3, 4 years old or whatever, you pick it up, you smell it, and you're like, it just smells off. Well, it's probably going rancid. And that doesn't mean it's going to hurt you. There's not bacterial growth in that, but the oils themselves are starting to go rancid. Just like when you have an oil, like a bottle of oil on the shelf at home that you're cooking with, and maybe it got pushed to the back and you pull it out, or a jar of peanut butter. Peanut butter is even a great example. If you don't eat a lot of peanut butter, for you weirdos out there who don't eat peanut butter, when you pull it out of the cabinet, if you haven't had it for a while, you open it up and the first thing you have is this like really like rancid, like sharp smell to it. That is because some of them oxidize quicker than others, and some oils are more known for that. Well, when you're producing a commercial mass produced product that is shipping worldwide, most likely, you want that shelf life to be as long as possible. So you're going to give extra attention to making sure there are less of these extra fats in there because you have a higher chance of that happening with the extra fats.
But
Not
look at the
necessarily,
basic ingredients list, right? You look at
yes.
the back of a cello or a Martin de Candre or something
Yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
They're so minimalist
Yeah.
that
Yes.
not
Nothing in
much
them.
can go wrong.
Yeah. But also, only one thing goes right, and that is the fact that they lather, and they're not designed
Yeah.
at all for a post-shave quality. It's not really in the mix. And for example, for Martin de Contra, I don't think that's a very good soap in that regard. I think it lathers great, but it's not a good soap for me. It's too drying. It's almost too
Hmm.
simple. And the same is kind of true for Arco, though Arco are maybe a little bit richer just because of the tallow, but that's still a very drying soap. It's not designed to be this kind
No.
of jack of all trades kind of thing. It's not really designed to do that at all. And I think that's
But then it shouldn't be, should it? It's
no, it
two
shouldn't be at
dollars.
all. It's $2. It's not meant to do that at all. What it does do is
Right.
deliver, right? It does exactly what it needs to, not everything that you want it to do. And I think that it's we can roll all the way back to one of the true benefits about wet shaving today is that a consumer has so many choices about where they want to put their money and what they want to invest in terms of how that product works for them. Maybe I want to spend money on razors. I want to save money on blades. I want to just buy a cheap soap. I just know that works. And I want a cheap bar brush that's going to last me for 15, 20 years. I just want to shave. Other people want to move up that kind of that luxury chain,
Yeah.
and you can continue to cherry pick products to the top of that pyramid. And there is no way to compare the best soaps out there today in the artisan market, which have gone so far beyond anything we thought they would have been 5 or 10 years ago. People are still buying Colonel Conk by the truckload.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's that level of utility, isn't it?
Yeah,
As you indicated before.
yeah,
You're not buying Colonel Conk at 350 a puck
yeah,
for something that you'd experience with Holy Cow's Sierra.
yeah.
They're just completely different
Completely
products,
different.
right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and that's actually what I'm using. I've been because my skin was really experiencing some real issues, and I think that was in part because I had a headset, for example, I used for years, and like those earpieces, I'd never really considered cleaning them. I was having those breakouts, and I've talked about those before. Just a line of breakouts. I picked one razor, one soap, and one brush to stick with. My wife said, "Look, stop switching all the time. Just use one thing and let's see what
Mm-hmm.
happens here," because it really was quite severe. I picked the Sierra only because I knew that my skin reacted to the post shave of that very well. And I knew that in terms of
I remember
reaction,
the review.
right? I said, this thing feels fantastic. I'm just going to stick with that for the next couple of weeks. And that's what I'm using right now. The thing is, I could have also gone for something like, I don't know, the palm olive stick. I would have just had to deal with the fact that my skin was going to be much drier after the fact. But here's the irony. After every shave, because I'm also trying to make sure that that irritation is gone. If that was something fungal or something else, I use alum after every shave because you can kind of use that salt to kind of kill what's on there.
Yeah.
My face is as dry as the Sahara right now. It doesn't matter what product I used. The fact is, because I'm relying on alum after a shave,
Mm-hmm.
it almost doesn't matter. So I'm kind of overdoing it with that soap. So the shave itself is fantastic, but the post shave benefits I'm erasing entirely with the alum.
Yeah.
So if
You
you're
need some
if that's
balm.
the thing is, I
And
wanted to
that leads to the point of the best balm.
right. Hell, maybe you could
You
tell
need,
us more about what that might be.
yeah, you
Um,
need some balm.
right, but the thing was, I
Carry
also
on,
wasn't
Michael.
sure what was happening with my skin, so I basically cut everything down. It's one razor, one brush, one soap. That's it. No aftershave, and just the alum. And my skin is much, much better than it was, but also quite dry. So at the end of this week, I will have gone from one pass to two passes to three passes with the same set of products. I'll add back in the aftershave, maybe, or go for the balm and just see what happens. Because at some point, like you have to just pare it down to say, look, no more fiddle faddle, no more changes, no more like, different products every day, which was really fun because I had not been doing that before.
That's a
Steady.
crazy thing. Do you, Heather, you could probably elaborate on this. Do you think your skin would benefit from getting used to using those same products all the time?
It's not a matter of getting used to it. It's a matter of troubleshooting, which is what he's doing. So he
Yeah.
wanted to make sure, he wanted to rule out it's the product, it's the razor, it's this, it's that. And then it comes down to something not even related to your shave, right? So
Yeah.
that is the benefit of using a product consistently. And a lot of people who are trying to help, new people into the hobby will say, pick a razor, pick a brush, pick a soap, pick a post shave 30 days. This is like your learning period. This will help you
Hmm.
like dial that in and things like that. It's really kind of the same thing that if you think about it, it's all about reducing those variables and then trying to troubleshoot. So, and it's about learning your skin. Like Michael said, he went from learning using products for 4 or 5 days for his reviews and things like this to like using, I assume, probably different products every day, every few days, because you didn't have that freedom before because you were always
Yeah.
on this regimen. So, and it ended up maybe not having anything to do with your shave and it was something external, but it was something new that maybe you were using more of because you're working
I,
from home and things like that.
all of that. Like I just didn't know. And so it never even occurred to me that the earpiece might be as dirty as it was. Like it just never really occurred to me. I had sort of, it's kind of in the back of my mind. I thought, what else is touching my face there? Because it was only ever on one side, but it would also get much worse after certain bombs than not. So like
Yeah.
I decided, okay, that's it. I'm just going to draw a line here. It's going to be everything down, then kind of think about what else is touching my face. And of course, in today's environment, I'm much more sensitive to whatever is touching my face, like how
Yeah.
often I
Yeah.
might be touching it or like cleaning my glasses on a much more regular basis. And the
Yeah.
headphones, which I honestly God had not thought about. I've had those Astro gaming headset for years, I don't think I ever taken the earpiece off because it never even occurred to me to do it. I know that
No.
sounds stupid, but it never even occurred to me. And they were not clean. They were dirty, and that's just sitting on touch. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I never thought about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, our skin really isn't clean if you think about it. I mean, we have like normal flora, we have bacteria and all these like microbes that are normal. It's not
Hmm.
abnormal. I mean, it's just how our skin is made. We have it has its own biome, you know?
Yeah,
And so if you think about that, when you have something touching your face, it can even be your phone. I mean, most of us clean our phone occasionally, but it can even be your phone. Like,
yeah,
you're putting it, you're touching it, and it's like it's hitting your face and then you're putting it in other places and it's going back to your face. Like people don't realize that. So
yeah.
yeah, definitely go. There's a lot to be said about going back and troubleshooting and using one product and one regimen for a while. Unfortunately, some products have better like outcomes than others as far as like post shave and things like that. So
Yeah.
Which leads me to ask for a summary, Michael. What would you say are the biggest differences between the mass-produced classics and the more modern artisan soaps?
Um, a more commercial style ingredient list with less focus on natural
Yeah.
ingredients, no super fats or extras included. They
mm,
are focused on functional lathering, so the ingredient list might turn some people off. They are often one note in terms of scent. Packaging is often pretty minimal. It's a cardboard box with a lot of the shaving sticks, but okay, but so what? It doesn't really much matter. Um, and post shave is not a consideration really at all.
mm.
Apart from Mitchell's Wolfat,
Mitchell's
I
Wolfat, yeah, but
and Hasslinger, I think that has a good post shave too.
I don't like hustling. I don't think of in the same as like the palm olive shave stick or the Leah shave stick or things like that. Those are like under a certain level. There's like a
Yeah.
fundamental commercial, then there's a step above. Like hustling or Mitchell's Wolfat, I don't think of as like a base commercial
I
offering.
guess that's with like Tabac, Hasslinger, Mitchell's
Yeah,
Wolfat. Like, yeah, there's a different tier. If you think of
yeah,
like Arco, Palmolive, Derby, like all of those,
all
yeah,
of
I
those. Yeah,
see what you're saying.
and I know this may upset people, and that's just too bad. Suck it up. Pro Rosso for me falls in that same category. I just don't think that's a very good soap.
It
It
it does for me too.
just sorry, I know people love it, but it's just not for me. It's just not a great soap. Now,
Okay, the
Williams,
way
on the
I
other
would,
hand,
oh, the
whatever.
best,
Yeah,
the
to the
best.
moon.
Williams is not a good soap. People always say to me, you should try the vintage Williams. I've never used the vintage Williams.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty good.
have you used? Is it much better in comparison?
Yeah, I mean, it's an actual good shaving soap. And then someone decided, hey, let's save a penny and make a shitty shaving soap, and people will still
Yeah.
buy it. And then there'll be a bunch of idiots, some of whom are my friends, who will continue to insist day after day, dude, this thing actually, if you just know how to do it, if you can just lather it right. I'm like, okay, I get it, but there's 1,000 soaps where that is not
Exactly.
required. So to me, dude, that's dumb. Why are you wasting your time on that? Because then it's a point of pride. I'm going to take this shitty soap, I'm going to make it work because I'm going to work it.
Well, I need to get
Why?
15.3 milliliters of water. I need to lather it
But
7 swirls.
right, but Sugar Daddy, like he wants to make that thing work and power to him.
Sugar daddy.
And you know
Oh,
what?
that
If you
guy.
want if you want to do that, if you want to do that, I say go for it. He's
The
another North Kakalaki person. I'm behind Sugar Daddy
the
all the way.
235 use Gillette NASA I see ticking
Yeah,
up and ticking up.
yeah,
Fuck me.
it's got to go all the way. But the fact is that he is working to make that soap work for him. Whereas I want
Mhm.
a soap that just works for me without any of the labor. And since there's 1,000 other options, why would I waste 1 second on trying to make
The
Williams
thing
work?
is, though,
And
I'm
by the
of the
way,
opinion, but you just said labor. Now, I lather for an hour, just as you said. I'm putting
yeah,
labor into creating a soap, but then I know if I spend 15 minutes lathering Heather's soap, I can't really get much better than that. How much better can you get when you're
yeah,
putting all this effort into lathering Williams?
it's never going to be that good. And the fact is that, but like Heather soap and a lot of these artist soaps, they take zero work to make
No,
lather.
they don't.
They just they now you could argue about how much water they need, and maybe for some of the bases, the post shave isn't great because they actually require more water to sort of offset some of the products that add to the slickness, whatever. But there's zero doubt that from the second you start, that soap is going to lather and lather well. And a soap like Williams, unfortunately, isn't that soap. Dude, and I'm sorry, it just isn't going to happen. And so like that's a bad example of a commercial soap. That's when I would say that's it's worth trying once you can kind of laugh at it and go, wow, really? Like seriously, guys?
What commercial soap would you
But
recommend?
I really like the Spike stick. I like the palm olive stick, the Leah stick, which was reformulated again when it was once bad. It's now really good. The tobacco stick is fantastic. Things like the palm olive shave cream. There's a reason those things have been around for as long as they have. They
Yeah,
just really work and they're just fun and easy to use.
Hmm.
I
They're
think
not
that.
the same heartwarming artisan experience.
No, they're not. Well, like I said on the video, like when I was shaving with cello, I was like, "Well, this is different, but it's still good." Like it's not.
Yeah,
This isn't the same product I use every day, but if you're looking for just something to shave your face and you're not looking for that
yeah,
experience that costs 20 plus dollars, maybe a jar. I mean, I paid maybe $11 for cello. It just
yeah, that
works.
just works. Now, imagine a world in which that's the only shave soap available. Heather, don't burst into tears. Imagine that happens.
Then I'd get
Would you
decent
not, would you
shaves every
not
day.
shave?
No.
You would shave with it and you'd shave it every day and you'd be perfectly happy because in fact you would be getting a good shave out of it.
Yeah.
Right? So the fact that you have much better alternatives
Well,
is
but then there's also the thing to say, I think we set incredibly high standards of what a shave should be. So
yeah,
when you
absolutely,
when
yeah.
you do pick up a Arco stick and it's not creating this like a marshmallow fluff on your face, you're like, what's this? This doesn't compute.
Yeah,
Right.
because
But
hobbyists are shave snobs, and you guys are demanding.
Yeah.
So that's what
yeah,
happens is the person who's shaving every day for like to shave and not as
yeah,
their hour-long lathering meditation or whatever it may be. Like that's like a good like go-to, right? And that's what
yeah.
they're doing. They're using the whole thing, and they're like, oh, I need to instead of saying I need to like to restock my shave soap, my shave can, they need to restock their shave stick. So it's the
Yeah.
same thing. They're using one, it's almost gone. They're like, hey, they
Get
turn
another
into
one.
Jimmy Fallon saying, hey, I need more Gillette. Where are you at?
To close this off, moral of the story are two things. One, if you're using commercial grade products, buy Heather's Balm.
Yeah,
And
you're
and
gonna need
two,
it.
You're gonna need it.
um, if you're not using commercial grade products and you're using even worse products that are like shave gels or shave foams, just use
They're-
a stick of Arco or Palmolive because
yeah,
they're good and they're so much
yeah,
better than what you're currently using. But yeah, I think that's a
yeah.
good way to close it out.
I would agree. It's a shocking step up.
It honestly is though, because I
Yeah,
remember the
it
experience to those shave foams, and my first soap was actually a tub of Proraso White, and I was like, oh my god, look what
uh,
this is doing.
yeah, this is incredible. Like, why would I ever use this other junk? And it
Yeah.
really is kind of junky. Yeah,
And
sorry,
that's
people.
why when people are shaving with carts and they say, what should I change? I say, what are you using for shave cream? Because I
Yeah.
can guarantee you can get a decent shave with a cartridge razor.
Hmm.
I can guarantee that cream, if you change that cream and you stick with that cartridge razor, you're going to be getting much better shaves.
Oh, you're gonna be so happy. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. But okay, I think that is a good way to end the episode. Do you have any plugs, Heather, before we close it out?
Yes, I will be starting the raffle for the healers and the essentials. That is wrapping up the fundraiser for Feeding America and Samaritan's Purse donations that we are doing. And that will probably start on, I don't even know, what is today? The 12th, maybe? Today's 12th.
Mhm.
So that will probably start on, actually, probably the day this releases on the 13th, 5/13, and we'll end in a few days. Hit my IG up for all the information.
Um, Carve and polished is pretty much completely finished. Um, to put a bit of scale on that, so Chris has established that a polished razor takes about 11 hours for one of them, and he's put in last week he put in 80 hours just on polishing. So yeah,
Uh,
we bit off way more than we can chew. um, but I've seen the end result, and they are the best polished razors I've ever seen. So that the fruits of his labor are fantastic, but there's a lot of time and frustration that have gone into
Yeah.
making those. But yeah, anything from you, Michael?
I have nothing to plug this time. I'm sorry to say.
What about your
yeah.
blooming bowl?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I think we're sold out right now. I mean, there was such a run on them last time. As soon as I announced, I had to run back there and like try to order more of these things, which is really nothing more than a salsa bowl from Walmart. Don't tell anybody, but it's a massive markup, and dude, the margin is humongous. Just don't tell anybody.
We
You
won't.
should tell Gracie about that. Maybe she can hook you up.
Yeah, maybe I'll find out in a month how things have turned around for me. That's
Okay,
hilarious.
guys, I hope you've enjoyed the episode this week. Any feedback, once again, is greatly appreciated. Thank you, Michael, for coming on once again. I have no doubt in my mind you're going to be back at some point in the future as well. Yeah, have a good week, guys, and catch you later.
Have a
Yep,
good
thank you
night.
for having me. And yes, I'll be happy to come back. And guys, have a fantastic rest of the week.
See ya.
Yep, bye bye.
Bye.